A little flashback to Chai Nayun's life. In a place like dojo, there are children who look very enthusiastic when they see a disciple of a hero. The person they mean is the little genius, Chai Nayun. She is now talking face to face with Yu Shiyuk, but their conversation doesn't seem to be going well. Shiyuk then asked her, was she sure, wanted to change her weapon to a bow. He also asked, was she forced by her mother to do that? Hearing that, Nayun immediately replied, there was no particular reason, she just wanted to change it. She felt that a genius like her might be able to become the best archer if she tried hard. Shiyuk was really helpless to hear that. He had even rewarded her with a magic sword. Nayun then immediately apologized to her master, but Shiyuk was very angry with her. He didn't want her to call him master. He didn't have a disciple who changed their life path at will. Shiyuk sighed for a moment. He said that he would not stop her. But, he once again asked her, was this really her own will? He told her to think it through, don't make decisions that she would regret. That was the reason why Nayun used a weapon that was not her talent. Back to the present, they continue to compete. So far they are still evenly matched. Their target distance has also increased to 450 meters, but that distance is certainly not their limit. The audience themselves watched the match in awe. The archers from the Veritas class really did not expect Hajin to be able to keep up with Nayun. A female archer was also as surprised as him. The distance was already above 400 meters, 450 meters was her personal record. Hearing the conversation between the two of them, a man behind them then said, not only could he keep up with her, but he also shot as soon as Chai Nayun managed to hit the target. He wouldn't be surprised if it was just 1 or 2 shots, but shouldn't he feel the psychological pressure in this tension-filled match? But, Kim Hajin's expression was quite calm even though he was mentally fighting. He even guessed, perhaps, Kim Hajin would win this bet. Jonghak was then very upset to hear that. They then immediately became silent when they realized it. Jonghak was also as surprised as them. He was very worried about Nayun at this time. As the shooting range continued to increase, Nayun was now having trouble hitting the exact point of the target bullet. Nayun could only curse seeing that. She had lost her composure at this time. Seeing that, Hajin then said, as he said, she was not suitable to use a bow. Nayun was then surprised to hear him suddenly say that. She then asked him, was he scared? Why did he provoke her like that? He told her to shut up and shoot his arrow. Chai Nayun had an impatient nature. She would be affected by any provocation. She was not suitable to be an archer. But the reason why she insisted on becoming an archer was, Hajin then asked her, you were scared, right? Afraid to use the sword. His question really surprised Chai Nayun. With a sharp look in her eyes, she then told him to shut up, but Hajin continued to provoke her. He asked, is that not the reason? But according to him it is precisely so. That's why she is always looking for excuses, right? Besides swords, I am also talented in using bows. I am talented in using bows. I can also become the greatest hero with crossbows. She always convinced herself by saying that, Hajin said, considering she switched to bows halfway through, she is already pretty good as an archer. His provocation seemed to trigger Nayun. She once again told him to shut his mouth. But, Hajin still continued his provocations, she said, but at that level, let alone killing a jinn, avenging her family alone she would not be able to. His words really took away the last calm that was in Nayun, and as she shot her arrow, towards the target above, something very surprising then happened. The shot turned out to miss and was unable to hit the target. The audience was then equally shocked and they saw it. An expression of disbelief could be seen clearly on Nayun's face when she saw it. She really couldn't believe what she saw. Seeing that, Hajin then closed the match with his last shot. Nayun sat listlessly on the floor facing her defeat. A few moments later, somewhere in the cube, Yona was seen who was walking leisurely there, but she was then surprised. When she saw Nayun sitting in the garden nearby, she looked sad. Seeing that, Yona then approached her. She asked, why was she here? Everyone was looking for her. With her head bowed, Nayun asked, did she also hear about it? That bastard brought up her family. Yona was then surprised to hear that. She then asked, why was he acting like that? Nayun said that he once helped her, and even though they were not that close, she always thought that he was not a sneaky bastard like the rumor said, but what confused her was, why he always behaved like that. Yona was also confused at this time. She did not understand what Hajin wanted to achieve by saying that to her. But she then suddenly realized something. A series of questions then appeared in her head. Are Nayun and Hajin the people she needs? The answer is yes. If the relationship between the two of them deteriorates, won't it interfere with her plan to recruit them? The answer is yes. If this continues, then the problem will widen. Yona was actually lazy to do this. She then said to her, Hajin didn't have a family, maybe for the same reason as her. Nayun was then surprised to hear that. Yona said that this was just her guess, but she felt that maybe Hajin felt a connection with her. He wanted her to understand his feelings even though he said things like that. And he wanted her to live a good life. It really surprised Nayun. After saying that to her, Yona was sure that she still had a lot to think about, so she would leave first. She also asked her not to go out for too long. With Yona's departure, Nayun was now back alone there, sitting pensively in the garden. She then recalled her interaction with her brother at that time. Her brother asked, why did she suddenly want to become an archer? Nayun said, there was no reason, she just felt bored when wearing a sword. Her brother was silent for a moment hearing that. He then stroked his little sister's hair, and said, whatever path she chooses, he will support her, because he knows she will do well. Nayun smiled happily after getting her brother's support, but, her brother asked, can she promise him? Nayun was then confused to hear that. Her brother said, in the future, when she is ready, he wants her to really think about what she wants. Hearing that, Nayun then promised her brother. Nayun seemed to be enlightened when she recalled the incident at that time. A system notification suddenly appeared in front of Hajin at this time. Extreme luck had been activated in the human relations section. His SP had increased by 253. Hajin was then confused to see that, and something he did not expect seemed to be happening between him and Nayun. After finding out a little about Hajin's past, Jin-hyuk then contacted Yona to tell her the information he had found. He said that he felt Kim Hajin had a secret. He had to find out more details, but he suspected that maybe he was related to a crime syndicate. Jin-hyuk felt like now was not the right time to discuss the chameleon troupe, so he didn't tell Yona which crime syndicate it was. He then asked her, should he keep investigating? Yona replied yes. She would definitely make him join the essence of the straight. Jin-hyuk seemed to think of something strange after hearing that. He then praised her and said, it seems like he should use his secret weapon. Yona seemed to realize that and asked, what nonsense is he thinking right now? Hajin probably didn't know there was someone investigating his past. He himself is now training at the training ground. There were a lot of spectators at the archery competition, so it was no wonder that the rumors were spreading. But he was surprised that someone came to interview him. He was even a little afraid to go to class now, but he was then surprised when he heard the voice of someone who was practicing there. He was confused who had not entered the class at this hour, but when he saw that person, he was then surprised. The person had short hair and was practicing using the sword at this time. The person turned out to be Nayun. She also seemed to be aware of his existence. She then immediately hid the sword behind her body. She seemed to feel embarrassed. Hajin then said, it looks like you are practicing. Nayun seemed to be still surprised to see Hajin catch her practicing using a sword. She then stammeringly replied yes, she was practicing. So what? Hajin said that he didn't mean it, by the way. Hajin then asked about her new hair. Hearing that, Nayun asked him back, what was wrong with her hair? Hajin asked, she didn't cut her hair because of the bet, right? Hearing that, Nayun then irritably said that she cut it just because it was hot. Did he think she cared about that? Hajin smiled slightly at that. He didn't mock her further and said that the style suited her. He also asked, did it feel fresher? Nayun didn't seem to expect Hajin to say that. With a slight blush, she then confirmed it. After that, Hajin then said she would go first. Nayun said okay. Seeing his figure who was now walking away, Nayun then thought she heard Hajin was originally a swordsman. When he abandoned everything he had formed for a lifetime, and chose another weapon, she wondered, how did he feel at that time? Nayun then put magic power into the sword. A powerful greenish aura then appeared enveloping the sword. She concentrated fully while doing so. She then felt happy because the aura could now reach the ceiling. She then recalled what her brother said at that time. Her brother asked, do you want to continue using the bow? You must have felt it today. Remembering these words made Nayun wonder, did he know from the beginning? After finishing his training and classes, Hajin then returned to the dormitory. He ordered camping equipment with a total price of nearly 2 million won. He felt that all this should be enough. He bought the camping equipment in preparation for the upcoming end-of-term exam which was held on a remote island. The academy would check the cadets' belongings before the test began. but that was to get rid of privately owned defense weapons and such, so this was no problem. As long as he said this was for emergencies, seeing the evangel's seed that kept twitching to eat, Hajin then helplessly said that he understood. He would prepare the food. As he fed the seed, Hajin then realized that it had grown much bigger. He wondered if it would be born soon. The newborn evangel would look like a 3 or 4-year-old toddler. There would be no problem if he raised her in the dormitory as long as he turned her into witch's power, which makes her look like a cat or a puppy. When Hajin touched the seed responded to his touch. He chuckled at that. Smiling, he told it to be born soon, in Seoul City, St. Hotel. Some chameleon troop members were gathering there. Jane then hesitantly asked the boss. Is she sure she was not joking? Was she really going to dress up as a cadet and sneak into the end-of-term exam? The boss said yes, that's why she needed her help. It made Jane really confused. Did she have to go that far? But she then realized, was this one of her weird obsessions? The boss said that there were people with skills that she wanted to see with her own eyes. Besides that, there was something she had to get from the exam center. Jane could only sigh helplessly hearing that. She then complied with her boss's request. Who could stop her? Jane then released some kind of liquid. The liquid then enveloped the whole body of the boss. While waiting for the transformation of the boss to be completed, Jane then explained the information about the cadets who would later become her disguise. Their mannerisms, personalities, and habits were all written down, so she asked her to remember. Hearing that, the boss casually replied, "All right." Hearing her casual tone made Jane get a bad feeling. Seeing that, the boss then told her that she was worrying too much. This is basically nothing. In a class in the cube, 2 female cadets were seen intimately hugging their friend. They asked their friend, did she have a boyfriend? She did not reply to their messages yesterday, which made them lonely. They also brought her a snack. The name of their friend is Lee Jina. She is also the person who is the boss's disguise. Seeing the interaction of the 2 of them with her, the boss then wondered, are these them? The friends who are written in the information section. She feels this is not difficult at all. She just needs to play a cadet. With a cheerful smile, she then said, "Oh my God, what boyfriend are you talking about?" Her demeanor now completely changed 180 degrees. It was witnessed clearly by Hajin. He was stunned to see it. Seeing his reaction, the boss wondered, did he see it? She then realized that Hajin had seen her disguise. Hajin still couldn't wake up from his shock. Realizing the strangeness of his attitude, Hajin then immediately moved away from there and headed to his seat. He really didn't understand at this time. He didn't understand why the boss was here. Time continued to roll, until finally the written exam ended, and now, the end-of-term practicum exam was finally about to begin. They boarded a ship to go to the remote island where the exam was held. There was also the boss. She was still hanging out with her 2 friends. Seeing that, Hajin thought, the boss was still in the cube, disguised as Coe Jean. Hajin originally thought that she would not appear in the cube after the midterm exam, but apparently she appeared again. This is one of the changes from the original plot of the novel. He does not know the reason, but for the time being he will follow her, to get additional SP, but Hajin is a little worried. Will he be okay? He had tried to talk with her as if they were close friends, but all he could get was a can of soda. He put it back in the vending machine without drinking it. He wondered, was she here to watch Suho and Jonghak? After a while, when they were about to reach their destination, Kim Suhyuk then appeared. He told them all to gather. He announced, the end-of-term exam rules are quite simple. They just need to survive on that island for 5 days, and get points. Points can be obtained by defeating monsters on the island, or they can steal them from other cadets. As a note, they can barter points with fellow cadets, for cadets who want to get higher points. They can get 200 points if they can snatch a name tag from one of the instructors, so they are free to challenge the instructors. Hajin really couldn't understand hearing that. How would anyone want to challenge the heroes who are still active? Kim Suhyuk continued, they would be dropped off at a predetermined place, so he told them to follow him. They understood. When they arrived there, the cadets then both got off the ship and headed to the island, but when Hajin walked forward, he was then surprised when he saw someone in front of him. That person is Rachel. He then immediately called her. He asked, does she want to pair up with him for this end-of-term exam? Hajin thought, it seems like it's not a coincidence that he went down together with Rachel for this exam. He noticed all the changes due to the co-author's interference. With the appearance of a villain who held a grudge against Rachel, she was the most vulnerable person to be targeted in this exam. Rachel was then surprised when she heard him suddenly ask that, with an apologetic tone. She then refused his offer. She was more comfortable alone, although Hajin had expected it. It still felt bad to be rejected. People with high rank tend to prefer to be alone. Even so, he had thought of another plan. Hajin then told her that he would share his location with her, just in case. He would not let the co-author play with him further. Hearing that, Rachel then thanked him, and they then separated from there. A few moments later, night fell. Someone's footprints were seen walking through the forest. The person walked while being careful of the surroundings. That person turned out to be Nayun. Right after that, she then saw the beasts that ambushed her. The beasts had the appearance of a large ape with sharp teeth. Nayun was not at all afraid of their ambush. With a swing of her sword, she then finished off the beasts with ease. She even looked quite relaxed. This does not seem to be the first time she has faced this, but that is not her problem right now. While laughing silly, she then confusedly shouted, "Where exactly is she now?" It seems like she got lost again. Nayun was really depressed at the moment. She had been killing monsters non-stop since she arrived on this island, but she didn't find the rations and resting place at all. If this continued, she might be disqualified first. But she was then surprised when she saw a bright shining light in front of her. She was very happy to see that and immediately moved towards the direction of the light. She could also smell delicious cooking from that direction. She was sure someone must have managed to get the rations. She was very grateful for finally being saved. But, what she did not expect was, the light turned out to be from Hajin, who was camping there. Hajin was quite surprised when she saw it. Nayun then surprisedly called him. Hajin said that there were still 12 hours before fellow cadets could fight each other. But Nayun had absolutely no intention of fighting him at this time. While looking at the meat he grilled, Nayun then confused and surprised asked, "Where did he get all this?" Hajin said that he bought them for emergencies. Considering the duration of the exam this time, such a smart decision would certainly never have occurred to Nayun. She also regretted it a little. With a slight blush, Nayun then praised his intelligence. But Hajin just looked at her silently when he heard her praise. That made Nayun even more embarrassed. Hajin then suddenly asked her how many points she had. Nayun was quite surprised at his sudden question. She then answered, 25. Hearing that, Hajin then made an offer to her. He would give her food in exchange for half of her points. Although Nayun was surprised that Hajin wanted half of her points, but she couldn't help but agree with his offer. She was already hungry at the moment. Hearing that, Hajin then asked, "She doesn't have a problem with the pork belly menu, right?" Nayun said she would eat it. Beggars have no right to be picky. In the end, he met Nayun instead of Rachel. Hajin thought, does that mean there has been no significant change in the story? To prove his guess, Hajin then hacked the drone servers placed throughout the island. It allowed him to see all the movements and whereabouts of the current cadets. And somewhere, a drone recorded the scene of Rachel walking towards a group of cadets. She approached the cadets to buy rations. They smiled slightly at her offer, with a sly smile. The leader of the cadets said that she didn't need to do that, she could just eat. Buying and selling between cadets seemed unethical. He asked, she would agree, right? After eating and chatting for a while, the two of them then both slept in a tent that Hajin set up. When morning came, Hajin then woke up. But he was then surprised, when he saw the sky that was still so dark. He wondered, was it polar night today? It was a situation when the sun did not appear or did not rise that lasted for several days. He also saw Nayun, who was still sleeping beside him. He then saw the evangel seed that was moving around restlessly because it wanted to eat. He then immediately calmed the seed. He couldn't stand the cuteness of the seed. After feeding the seed, he silently told it to stay in his pocket as long as he moved. Hajin then tried to wake Nayun up. He asked if she was still sleeping. He wanted to pack the tent, but Nayun did not respond at all. Seeing that, Hajin decided not to care about her anymore, and started packing the tent. Finally, the battle between cadets was allowed. If possible, he wanted to immediately get rid of the most dangerous first. But he can't kill anyone, because the cadets that he suspects as Jin, technically still can't be called Jin. There is a difference between Jin who make contracts with other Jin and Jin who make contracts with demons. They are treated as pawns, disposable items, or experimental materials, but because they get power from fellow Jin, they can prevent themselves from going berserk. On the other hand, they are also treated as main members, but there are not many of them because of the side effects. On this island, the only cadet who survived the side effects was Ju Yohun. Hajin thought he should look for a high place. His first destination was the world tree located in the center of this island. After determining his destination, Hajin then immediately moved quickly, while Nayun herself now seemed to be still asleep in her blanket. After a while, Hajin then reached the top of a hill. In the bushes on the hill, an arrow was seen aiming at a direction secretly. The direction the arrow was aiming at turned out to be where Hajin was. The archer then reported to Yona that she found someone. Seeing this, Yona then immediately stopped the archer before she could shoot. She said that she could not mess with him. The archer was then confused to hear that he was only ranked 937. Yona then explained to the archer named Rose, even so, she would not win against him. A feeling of confusion enveloped Rose's heart when she heard that. She really didn't understand what Yona meant, so she decided to watch Hajin. Seeing Hajin who took a step, she wondered, is he going to jump? Could it be that he plans to climb that tall world tree? The answer to her question was then answered shortly after that. After taking a step, Hajin then immediately jumped and climbed to the top of that towering tree. Seeing that, Yona then said to her, she saw it right. Rose was really dumbfounded to see that. She couldn't believe what she saw. He reached the very top of the world tree in just a few breaths. Yona said that the rank was just a number to him. She thought she already knew what would happen if she shot him with an arrow. Rose then realized how serious the situation was. Yona continued, one more advice from her, keep it a secret that he is actually strong. Rose was then confused to hear that. Yona explained, one day he might become part of her group. Hearing that, Rose understood. She promised to bury this secret deeply. Right after that, her smartwatch then rang. Yona then said to her, Hajin had contacted. She then invited her to come back. Hajin himself was now perched at the very top of the world tree. He then used 1,000-mile eyes. It made him able to see all the activities on the island. After observing for a while, Hajin then found the person he was looking for. He smiled slightly. It was time to make the reward fall into his lap. He needed to prepare a stick with a particular phrase and coordinates. This was all he needed. After that, Hajin then threw the stick strongly towards his target. It was not an ordinary stick, because he had poured the stigma's mana into it. The stick shot quickly towards the man. As the stick approached, the man seemed to notice it, but Hajin's goal was not to attack the man using the stick. He only targeted the ground nearby. The man was silent for a moment. Seeing that, he then picked up the stick that was stuck on the ground nearby. After picking it up, he then turned his head in a direction, towards where Hajin was. Hajin was just watching it silently. Now, all he had to do was wait. At the place where Hajin set up his tent before, Nayun, who seemed to be still asleep there, then showed signs of waking up. She woke up with a feeling of shame in her heart. Her heart was pounding at this time. She then recalled Hajin's words earlier. Hajin at that time asked, why are you so cute? Nayun seemed to have woken up earlier and misunderstood because she thought Hajin was calling her cute. Even though Hajin asked that to Evangel Seed, Nayun's mind was really confused at this time. She had heard many compliments on her appearance since childhood, but what was wrong with him, saying things like that to people who were sleeping? But she then tried to think positively. Maybe there was a cat or dog earlier, or maybe he was talking to himself. But if not all of that, then, did he really say that to her? That thought made Nayun flustered. When Nayun was thinking about him, Hajin seemed to feel it. He wondered, is someone talking about him?